Are you constantly losing your cell phone? Have you ever driven back home to make sure you turned off the stove? Have you ever walked into a room for something, but forgotten what it was? You probably answered yes to at least one, if not all, of these examples. But don't worry, you are not alone. We are all prone to committing the memory error known as absent-mindedness, which describes lapses in memory caused by breaks in attention or our focus being somewhere else. Cynthia, a psychologist, recalls a time when she recently committed the memory error of absent-mindedness when I was completing court-ordered psychological evaluations. Each time I went to the court, I was issued a temporary identification card with a magnetic strip which would open otherwise locked doors. As you can imagine, in a courtroom, this identification is valuable and important, and no one wanted it to be lost or be picked up by a criminal. At the end of the day, I would hand in my temporary identification. One day, when I was almost done with an evaluation, my daughter's daycare called and said she was sick and needed to be picked up. It was a flu season. I didn't know how sick she was, and I was concerned. I finished up the evaluation in the next 10 minutes, packed up my briefcase, and rushed to drive to my daughter's daycare. After I picked up my daughter, I could not remember if I had handed back my identification or if I had left it sitting out on a table. I immediately called the court to check. It turned out that I had handed back my identification. Why could I not remember that? Personal communication, September 5th, 2019. When have you experienced absent-mindedness? I just streamed this movie called Oblivion, and it had that famous actor in it. Oh, what's his name? He's been in all of those movies, like The Shawshank Redemption and the Dark Knight trilogy. I think he's even won an Oscar. Oh, gosh, I can picture his face in my mind and hear his distinctive voice, but I just can't think of his name. This is going to bug me until I can remember it. This particular error can be so frustrating because you have the information right on the tip of your tongue. Have you ever experienced this? If so, you've committed the error known as blocking. You can't access stored information. Figure 815. A photograph shows Morgan Freeman. Figure 815. Blocking is also known as tip of the tongue, ta'autida phenomenon. The memory is right there, but you can't seem to recall it. Just like not being able to remember the name of that very famous actor, Morgan Freeman. Credit, modification of work by D. Miller. Now let's take a look at the 3 errors of distortion: misattribution, suggestibility, and bias. Misattribution happens when you confuse the source of your information. Let's say Alejandra was dating Lucia, and they saw the first Hobbit movie together. Then they broke up when Alejandra saw the second Hobbit movie with someone else. Later that year, Alejandra and Lucia get back together. One day, they are discussing how the Hobbit books and movies are different. And Alejandra says to Lucia, "I loved watching the second movie with you and seeing you jump out of your seat during that super scary part." When Lucia responded with a puzzled and then angry look, Alejandra realized she'd committed the error of misattribution. What if someone is a victim of rape shortly after watching a television program? Is it possible that the victim could actually blame the rape on the person she saw on television because of misattribution? This is exactly what happened to Donald Thompson. Australian eyewitness expert Donald Thompson appeared on a live TV discussion about the unreliability of eyewitness memory, he was later arrested, placed in a lineup, and identified by a victim as the man who had raped her. The police charged Thompson, although the rape had occurred at the time he was on TV. They dismissed his alibi that he was in plain view of a TV audience and in the company of the other discussants, including an assistant commissioner of police. Eventually, the investigators discovered that the rapist had attacked the woman as she was watching TV, the very program on which Thompson had appeared. Authorities eventually cleared Thompson. The woman had confused the rapist's face with the face that she had seen on TV. Adelaide 2004, P 1383. The second distortion error is suggestibility. Suggestibility is similar to misattribution, since it also involves false memories, but is different. With misattribution, you create the false memory entirely on your own, which is what the victim did in the Donald Thompson case above. So, with suggestibility, it comes from someone else, such as a therapist or police interviewer asking leading questions of a witness during an interview. Memories can also be affected by bias, which is the final distortion error. Schachter, 2001, says that your feelings and view of the world can actually distort your memory of past events. There are several